Marcus Rashford is easy to misunderstand. To some people, he is the gifted boy from Manchester who became a hero at his childhood club. To others, he is the footballer who challenged the British government and helped feed children. And to his harshest critics, he is a player who has never fully turned extraordinary talent into consistent greatness. All three versions contain some truth, but none of them, on its own, explains the man. To understand Marcus Rashford, you have to begin before the fame, before Old Trafford, and before millions of people knew his name. He grew up in Wythenshawe, in a working-class family led by his mother, Melanie. She worked hard, but hard work did not always guarantee security. The Rashford has spoken about depending on breakfast clubs, free school meals, and the help of other people. That experience appears to have given him two powerful traits: sensitivity to struggle and a deep fear of wasted opportunity. Children who grow up with limited resources often notice what other people overlook. They understand the value of a meal, a bus journey, or one adult deciding to help. For Rashford, support was practical: food, transport, coaching, and sacrifice. This may explain why he later spoke about poverty as a memory rather than a distant political issue. Hunger was not a statistic to him, it was part of his story. Hardship did not only create compassion, it also seems to have created urgency. Rashford joined Manchester United's academy as a child, entering an environment where talent was everywhere. Ability was not enough. He had to listen, adapt, and keep moving. Coaches often described a quiet player rather than a loud personality. His confidence appeared in motion, through running at defenders and acting before fear interrupted him. That pattern defined his arrival in professional football. In February 2016, an injury gave the 18-year-old Rashford an unexpected place in Manchester United's starting team against Midtjylland. He scored twice. 3 days later, on his Premier League debut against Arsenal, he scored twice again. The speed of his rise made it feel like destiny, yet what looked like a perfect plan was actually a response to chaos. Rashford's first great skill was not control, it was readiness. This tells us something important about his character. Some players need certainty before they perform. Rashford at his best seems to need possibility. Give him open grass, a target, and permission to attack, and his instincts become sharp. His finest football appears when the mission is simple: run, commit the defender, and finish. When his role changes or every decision is examined, that natural freedom can disappear. The sensitivity that helps him recognize opportunity may also make him vulnerable to the emotional climate around him. Rashford has played through different managers, systems, injuries, and periods of instability. His form has risen and fallen sharply. Within the 2022 to 2023 season, he scored 30 goals in all competitions for Manchester United. At other times, he has looked distant and uncertain. The public often calls this a lack of effort, but character is rarely that simple. Rashford does not appear emotionally detached. He seems deeply connected to confidence, belonging, and purpose. When those elements align, he can look unstoppable. When they break apart, he can look like a man trying to remember how he once moved so freely. This does not remove responsibility. Elite players must perform in imperfect conditions, but criticism of his attitude may miss the deeper truth. His greatest strength and weakness may come from the same emotional openness. That openness became impossible to ignore during the pandemic. With schools closed, Rashford thought about children who depended on school meals. He partnered with FairShare, helped raise enormous support for vulnerable families, wrote publicly to members of parliament, and pressed the government to extend help during the school holidays. The campaign contributed to a major change in policy and made him one of the most influential athletes in Britain. The striking part was not simply that he donated money. Many wealthy people donate. Rashford used memory as evidence. He made his own childhood visible, even though speaking about poverty could have exposed him to judgment. In doing so, he showed a form of courage different from taking a penalty. He allowed millions of people to see the vulnerable child behind the famous athlete. This approach also revealed emotional intelligence. He did not present struggling families as failures. He spoke about his mother with pride and showed that poverty can exist beside exhausting work and strong parenting. Instead of making himself the heroic rescuer, he protected people's dignity and focused attention on the children. Rashford's message was morally direct. A child should not go hungry. He avoided complicated language and told a story the public could understand. When officials resisted, he remained persistent without making the campaign a performance of personal anger. That combination of restraint and determination is central to his public character. His power comes from appearing sincere and connected to the cause. The campaign earned him an MBE for services to vulnerable children, but the honor was not the most revealing outcome. More revealing was his decision to continue. He supported a task force on child food poverty and helped create a book club designed to give disadvantaged children access to reading. Food and books may seem like separate causes, but psychologically they belong to the same idea. A child needs more than survival. A child also needs imagination. imagination, confidence, and the chance to see a larger future. Then came a different kind of test. In the final of Euro 2020, Rashford was brought on late and missed his penalty in the shootout against Italy. Afterward, he and other Black England players were targeted with racist abuse. A mural honoring him in Manchester was defaced, then covered by messages of love and solidarity from the community. His response revealed both pain and a stable sense of identity. He apologized for the missed penalty, but he did not apologize for who he was. That difference matters. He accepted responsibility for an action without accepting the hatred attached to it. It showed a boundary inside him. Performance can be judged, but human worth is not available for negotiation. This is where Rashford's public image becomes complicated. Society turns people into symbols, then becomes angry when they act like human beings. Because he showed moral leadership, some expected exceptional football every week. Every poor match or disputed decision could be framed as hypocrisy. The footballer was no longer allowed an ordinary mistake. The symbol had to remain perfect. Rashford has not always helped himself. Questions about discipline, preparation, and off-field choices have sometimes been legitimate. Compassion does not create consistency, and good intentions do not cancel professional obligations. He can be socially courageous and still make poor decisions. He can inspire children and frustrate coaches. These contradictions do not destroy his character, they make it human. His career away from Manchester United, including loan spells with Aston Villa and Barcelona, added another layer to the story. For most of his life, Rashford and United were almost impossible to separate. The club was not merely an employer. It was childhood, family sacrifice, identity, and proof that the journey had been worthwhile. Leaving that environment even temporarily meant confronting a difficult question: who is Marcus Rashford when he is not carrying the meaning of Manchester United? At his best, Rashford is driven by service. On the pitch, that service appears as decisive action for his team. Away from it, service appears as advocacy for children who remind him of his younger self. In both worlds, he is strongest when the purpose is clear. The difficulty begins when purpose is replaced by noise, tactical confusion, public judgment, commercial expectation, or the burden of representing more than one person should have to represent. There is also a quiet stubbornness in him. His activism continued after resistance. In football, he has returned from injury, poor form, and doubt. Stubbornness can protect ambition, but it can also become isolation. A reserved person may retreat instead of explaining himself, making silence look like indifference. We cannot know what Rashford feels, but his public pattern suggests someone who speaks through action and struggles when action stops producing results. Marcus Rashford's character is built around memory. He remembers hunger, his mother's sacrifice, the academy, and the sudden chance that changed his life. Memory gives him empathy and direction. It may also add weight. He is not only trying to score the next goal, he is carrying the boy he once was, the family that carried him, the club that formed him, and the millions of people who turned him into a symbol of possibility. Perhaps that is the real Marcus Rashford, not a flawless hero and not a wasted talent, but a sensitive, ambitious person whose gifts become brightest when freedom and purpose meet. His story shows that courage can exist beside inconsistency, discipline beside vulnerability, and achievement beside doubt. Character is not proven by never falling below expectations. It is revealed by what a person protects, what he returns to, and what he chooses to do with the power he has. Rashford has already answered one important question. When success gave him a voice, he used it for people who were still unheard. The remaining question is whether he can offer himself the same patience, structure, and belief that he has fought to give others. His next chapter will not simply decide how many goals he scores. It will show whether the boy who was always ready for an opportunity can become a man capable of creating a new one. This is Where Are They?